So for today's tip, we're talking about kicks, and I'm going to show you how to create a Dirty Secret style kick. Now, for the most part, I try and keep things easy and simple. I usually try and find a kick sample that I like and use that straight off. But if I can't find that, then I make my own. I take a subby kick and then a more kind of crunchy kick and put them together. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm doing a brand new music production tip every day of January. That's right, 31 days, 31 tips, and today we're talking about kicks. Now, I get a lot of messages about my kicks. Where do I find my kick samples from? How do I make my kicks? Well, I thought I'd kind of do a quick tip video just to kind of show you how I do that. Now, for the most part, I try and find the right kick drum sample to start with. If I can find the right one, then I use that. I try and keep it as simple as possible. But if I can't, then I will make my own. And that's what I want to show you how to do today. So what we're going to do is we're going to find two kick samples. We're going to find a kind of bassy, kind of subby kind of one with a bit of weight behind it. And then we'll try and find a more kind of dirty, crunchy, almost like hip hop kind of kick drum sample. And then we're going to put them both together to create this kind of hybrid kind of kick. So let's jump into Ableton. So I've got this brand new Ableton project, which has got a MIDI track within here, nothing on it at the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look, listen to a few kick samples within here. Now I've already added these to my collections. This is a collection of kicks that I use regularly. I'm going to try and find a couple of samples within here that we can make a hybrid kick from. So first off, let's try and find a subby kind of kick. In fact, all of these are quite subby. I think that one's got a nice kind of weight to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this onto the MIDI channel, and this will create a brand new sampler for me. Now, because this is a kick loop, I actually just want to take in the end of it. So we're only using one of these kick samples. That's all we need for this demo. So next up, I'm going to create a MIDI clip. Now I'm going to create a small MIDI clip to start with, just over the 4 beats. So over just one bar. I'm going to right click on here and go insert MIDI clip. Now what I need to do is put some notes on C3. So that's the kind of root note of the sampler. So I'm just going to put in 4 notes within here. And that will just give us our kick loop. And then I'm just going to drag that out. So we got that over the whole course of the 8 bars that we got going on here. So far we just have one single kick sample. So this gives us our weight of our sample, but we now need to get that kind of crunch, that hip hop kind of sound, maybe something with a bit more kind of dirt to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to right click on this sampler and I'm going to go to group. And what this will do is it will now make it into an instrument rack, which means we can then duplicate this kick up. So at the moment we have just one kick within here. I opened up this little panel just here, which shows me all the different instruments within here. And we just have one kick at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to go to duplicate, which will actually duplicate that kick drum. So we now have the same kick drum twice within here. So effectively it will just be double the volume really. And what we need to do is we need to replace one of these with a more kind of crunchy kind of kick drum sample. So I'm going to have a listen through to a few more of these. That's got a nice kind of crunch to it. In fact, that's got a kind of lighter feel to it. That's maybe a bit too much. I might just keep with that one. I quite like that one quite a bit. So I'm going to drag and drop that into the second one within here. So we now have 2 kick drum samples. We have the subbier one and then the kind of lighter one. Now, just so you kind of know the difference between these, you can rename these. So for example, I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to call this subby. And then I'll right click on this one and call this, I don't know, call it light or something. So we've got 2 kick drums playing within here. Now, if I play this back, obviously both of these haven't been EQ'd yet. They will just play back at the same time. So what we need to do now is we need to put some EQ on it. Now, first off, this light sample, this light kick drum, we don't need any of the bottom end. We don't need any of that subby presence because that's coming from the subbier kick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to solo this. I can actually just solo that sample on its own. And what I need to do now is get rid of the bottom end of that. So I'm going to go to the audio effects and I'm going to drag and drop an EQ8 on it. Now I'm not going to put it at the end of the chain here, I'm going to put it after this sample. So you can see here that I can put it after this sample, and that keeps it within this group. So you can see if I now go back to the subby one, it doesn't have any EQ in there, but the light one does. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out some of the bottom end of that lighter kick. Just boosting the highs a little bit, just to kind of give us a bit more of a raw edge to it. So got that within there, it's kind of taken some of that out. Now what I can do is I can actually roll off some of the subby top as well if I wanted to, but to be honest, I think we should be okay with that. It hasn't got much top presence within there. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put an EQ8 on there anyway, and I'm going to just filter out a little bit of the bottom end, so I don't quite need it, you know, quite as subby. So maybe filter it out to about 35 hertz, 40 hertz. Let's just solo that one so we can make that change. There you go. I'm going to keep that kind of nice and loose. I don't want to cut off too much of it. Now we need to kind of tweak the length of these samples because they probably will sound pretty good together, but by kind of tightening them up a little bit, we'll make it just sound just that kind of little bit tighter. I like my drums to be quite short and snappy because then it gives more room for the bass. So we can do that by easily just cropping these samples a bit. So I'm going to start off with the lighter one to start with. I'm going to take snap off, and I'm actually going to turn it into one-shot mode, which allows me to kind of fade it out a little bit at the end there, you can see. And I'm also going to do the same thing with the subby one as well, because I feel that that's just a little bit too long. It's got a bit too much of a tail. So I'm going to put it into one-shot mode, turn snap off, and I'm going to fade it out a little bit. And I'm just going to adjust that, just that end of it, just to make sure we're kind of cropping a little bit off, making it a little bit shorter. Now with the subby one, you might want to add a little bit more of a fade out on it. So we got both of those playing back quite nicely. Now we need to just adjust the volume on it. So both of these are both playing at the same volume. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that light one down just a little bit. This is totally up to your own preference and you can do whatever you want with this. So there you go, they're both kind of leveled out now. We can hear what both of them sound like on their own and then together. So we now have both of these kicks playing together, and what I'm going to do just to kind of make them merge in a little bit more, we could put a bit of compression on there, but to be honest, I like putting a bit of saturation on there. This kind of really works well to kind of glue them both together. I'm actually going to put this after the group because I want this to affect both of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the drive a little bit and take down the output because we've put a bit more drive into it, so we're adding more volume to it, so we're going to need to take down the output a bit. So I'm actually going to take down the output first. I'm going to take it down to about maybe minus 3.7, that'd be fine. And I'll increase the drive to about 3, maybe 4. Actually, there we go, just taking up the drive a little bit more, just to give it a bit more punch. And I've just adjusted the start time of that lighter kind of kick as well. It just seemed to have something at the start of it that wasn't quite right. And so that's how I make my kicks. Now there's a whole load of different ways of being able to do this. Load more videos on YouTube showing you how to do this, but this is just the way that I do it, and I find it works really, really well because you get the best of both worlds. You get that kind of subby kick which has the kind of weight to it, but then you also get that kind of character from the lighter kick. You get that kind of crunch, that dirtiness, and you create this kind of hybrid between the two that just works. Now I probably would tweak this a little bit more, I'd spend some more time on it, but I just wanted to get across the technique to you as quick as possible so you can go ahead and start playing around yourself. Now if this has been useful, then definitely subscribe to the channel because I've got a whole load more videos like this on the way. As I mentioned, a whole load more tips in January, 31 days, 31 tips, so definitely subscribe and hit the notification icon so you're notified the moment that tip comes online. And hopefully I'll see you again in the next video.